Now, war means mobilized violence that exists only among human species of mammal. Other social animals, occasionally, you said they fight group to group, but never happen war. As though question the sophisticated weapon, and of course, including nuclear weapon, exists only among human beings. Anger, quite common with other animals, but human anger really becomes so much destructive. Why? This human intelligence. Human intelligence become disposal of anger, then really unthinkable sort of damage or violence. So, genuine peace, world peace, even family level peace or community level peace must start from here. Without inner peace, impossible to achieve peaceful individual, peaceful family, peaceful community, and finally peaceful world. So now, I think there is many signs of the hope within 20th century, early part of 20th century, later part of 20th century. I think humanity is thinking, including leaders thinking, early part, war as, I think, best method to solve sort of the problem. Or whenever you develop disagreement, different interest, then use force. But later part of 20th century, that kind of attitude, public level, I think, much changed. So I always was mentioning spirit of European Union. French, for example, French, Germany, in early part of 20th century, enemy. After Second World War, then you see develop the Union, European Union. So these, I think the clear sort of example. We humanity suffer too much through violence. So this eventually, at least European continent, you see, they develop the European Union. That's, I think, best guarantee no longer violent fighting among the member states. So I always saying, eventually, Eastern Europe, particularly Russia, should join the European Union. Then I often, you see, expressing African Union, and also Arab areas union, then Latin American Union. Then I think the peace becoming more stronger, I feel. So now all this, I think the member state of European Union, I think they consider the union of Europe, or interest about Europe top priority. Interest, each state's interest, important, but top most important is interest for European people. So European Union start. Now the time come, we should make every effort to develop sense of oneness of entire humanity. Whether, those different religious traditions, we all created by one God. And this morning, we have meeting. So, according to Judaism, according Christianity, Islam, you see, believe one God. And then, in ancient Indian tradition, some religious tradition, no concept of God, but rather self-creation. Then we human beings, as a basic, our nature is more compassionate. Now scientists say that. So therefore, the basic our sort of nature is more compassionate. Now this human intelligence, human special brain, should cooperate with warm-heartedness. Then, firstly, peaceful person, individual. Then family level, peaceful family. Then community level. And finally, global level. So, now time comes, irrespective whether believer or non-believer, or religious person or non-religious person, we are semi-human being. We are human beings of this planet. The future of humanity depends on ourselves. So, human being, social animal, the emotional level, the emotion which brings together, that's human love, human affection. So now, I feel education, the key role, very important. So I have the sort of critical view, existing education system, not adequate to create inner peace or including about inner peace or inner value. Existing modern education very much oriented about the material value. So now eventually, I think existing education system should include some education about our inner value, that related with inner peace. And I think through education, eventually I think future generation, more holistic education, taking care of our healthy body, similarly healthy mind. So through that way, I think inner peace will, I think we can promote inner peace. With that, determination, demilitarize the world, then come. So, I think step by step. First step, denuclearization. Then eventually offensive weapon eliminate. Then eventually, I think, except a few police, if necessary, some effective gun, but no military forces. And small group of very highly trained small commando or something.
Special forces.
Or some place like Kasa, or mafia, some area, some mafia there. Then you can use the small group of force. But the national level, international level, no. Oh, hello. No, military forces. That I think should be our aim. In order to become a peaceful century, we also need the promotion of spirit of dialogue. Whenever I feel some disagreement, some different interests, so long human being remain there, some differences always there. So when differences become serious, then must solve that through dialogue, through talk, not relying on use force. So this century should be century of dialogue. So that is, and then, so for that, I always say, trying to tell people, to share with other people, sense of oneness of 7 billion human beings. Then second, my commitment is promotion of religious harmony. So, and then of course, regarding sort of humanity, thinking humanity, environment also become very important. So, I think most of you this morning attended. So, I'm going to stop my talk. Now I prefer taking questions, and I prefer more because of the nature of Kasa.
Interaction, dialogue.
Interaction, yes. So,
Your Holiness, in the context of this talk about education, can you please speak to us about what you believe are the characteristics of a good teacher? Can you tell us something about those who have been especially good teachers to you during your life, and what things made them special, good teachers? What is the characteristic of a good teacher?
Firstly, we need also the curriculum which mentioning about ethics, not based on religion, but based on our common experience, common sense, and scientific finding. So, last more than 10 years, we already worked for drafting secular curriculum. So some already now produce, some organizations such as Emory University, and in Bombay, the Tata Institute of Science. So I think within this year, we are ready to produce some draft curriculum about secular ethics. Then teachers training, very important. Now we already some work in India, large number of teachers training like that. In any case, existing sort of the education field, the teacher, very important, not only teach the subject, but show your love, your sense of concern and sense of responsibility to whole life of the student. Not just at classroom teach something, not that way, but really carry serious sort of concern about their well-being and their future, whole their life. So then, relation between teacher and student, more compassionate way. Then student also, you see, I think from sort of knowledge from a teacher who really showing love, affection, I think that sort of lesson really deep, because it goes very deep in their mind.
More effective.
Otherwise, you see, teacher never showing affection, then I think student, when they see the classroom, feel that kind of sort of similarity.
Immediately feels distaste for the class.
Right.
Your Holiness, it is very interesting that among the methods used in the Buddhist monastic education,
meditation, the very word meditation, according to Indian understanding, two type of meditation. One, single-pointed, that we call shamatha. Then another meditation, vipassana, analyze. So, I feel the analytical meditation is more effective, like that. my daily prayer, mainly analytical meditation. So analyze. And on the basis of cause and effect, that way. So actually, I think the scientists or educationists or businessmen, women, also you see, practice that, analyze, research. Research means analyze. So that's more, effective. Then in any way, these are training of mind. Usually, we too much rely on sort of the machines on these things. Sometimes seems to we use less our ability, mental ability, analyze. That's important. I think that is something common. And important is, it is quite, I think, useful to learn more about inner world, particularly the system of our emotion, on the basis of cause and effect. So, such as anger, not come independently, come from its own causes and conditions. These are external conditions we can avoid, but real cause is within ourselves, our own mind. So once we know these things, then the development of the causes of anger come. At that period, you can deal much easier. After because of the fully developed strong anger, that moment deal anger a little bit more difficult. So it is very, very important to know the whole system of our emotion and our mind. So that's, I think, even modern science, scientific research, not yet developed. Just in the till later part of 20th century, among the scientists, they simply reject existence of consciousness or something. Only some kind of brain waves like that. Now, later part of 20th century, now beginning of 21st century, now some scientists, and especially brain specialists, now they begin to realize, there is, whatever you call, there is something which affects our brain. So now, Western psychology begin to, show more seriousness about mind and the training of mind. That, I think, from Eastern Indian tradition, I think can help to West. And although, you see, these information originally come from religious text, Hindu as well as Buddhism, but we should take these subject as an academic subject, not religious subject. So, over 10 years, we already selected certain sort of ideas or information about mind or certain way to train our mind. We take separately. This is academic subject, not religious subject. So, for example, out of 300 volumes which translated from India into Tibetan, so we usually call Kanjur and Tenjur, altogether 300 volumes. Now, the content we can divide 3 parts. First, science, and including science of mind. Then also logic. Then, second part, philosophy. Philosophy, there are 2 kinds. So one philosophy directly related with Buddhism. Another philosophy is something because of the basic, because of the explanation about sort of reality, like quantum physics. Then third, religion. That is to Buddhist. But the science and a certain philosophy, that is common for everybody, like that. So we already produced some book about science, mainly science of mind. Then some extent, some logic, like that.
Another such method found in Buddhist education, but no longer used in modern Western education, is memorization. What benefits could teaching students the skill of memorizing, what benefit there are in doing that in the Western education?
Actually, education or learning is memorizing. But in our monastic sort of education, the root text we memorize, the word memorize. Sometimes very helpful, sometimes not much helpful. So, myself, I think age around 7, 8, already started memorizing. Memorize some root text. Now the content of these things there, but the word memorize now already gone. Some cases you see people carry chanting, everything memorized, but without knowing the meaning. One my Japanese friend, long-time friend, he himself scholar, a Buddhist monk. One time he told me every Japanese Buddhist is reciting Heart Sutra, Shiranyimbu, but without knowing the meaning. So many Tibetan, I think, whole day chanting, but not necessarily knowing the meaning.
Your Holiness, it seems that in the last 60, 70 years, so much of the world's culture has become marketplace, Sonre, culture, with a kind of marketplace ethic. I'll give you something, but only if I get something from you in return.
Oh, yes.
Or if you take something from me, I'll take something from you. Or I'll even hurt you in return. That is accepted as the norm, as acceptable behavior. If you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. If you give me something, I'll give you something. If you take something from me, I'll take something from you. Consequently, an ethic of having more and more rather than an ethic of being, such as being a better, kinder, less selfish person, is an ethic of this type. What specific changes can we make in how we educate our young people to diminish the ethic of having and establish or re-establish an ethic of being that is of goodness, being good, being kind, and less selfish? So,
yes, it is true. As I mentioned earlier, our existing education system very much oriented about material value. So, whole people, generation who come through that kind of education eventually create materialistic life, materialistic culture. So, all things, even including teaching religion, also become like business. Give something, take something. So these are self-centered. I. So genuine altruism is you should have the love to other as much as love yourself. Other and yourself. And this morning also you see some religious teaching you mentioned that. So these should implement.
Well, Your Holiness, now we seem to live in a world in which everyone has a cell phone or a tablet, a computer, and is constantly connected with the internet. And this begins at a very early age in many cultures. For many young people, this is so-called connectedness, being connected through the internet, and is not only becoming addictive, but it also creates a kind of sense of false connectedness, Tsuma, which with others and with the world, that in many instances seems to make true heart-to-heart empathic connection with others even more difficult. Your Holiness, has any suggestion on how we might educate our young people better in order to overcome or make it better this problem?
Yeah, also I think when you get some information, not totally relying on that, analyze by yourself and seek different source of information, then comparison. So that's our traditional way. So as a Buddhist student, we study all different philosophical views. See, that's very, very helpful to analyze. Or this philosophical view say this, that philosophical view say that. And then, because of comparison.
Compare.
That's very, very important for analyzation. So information from different source. So you totally relying what information you get. What information you get. Then I think these instruments, I feel very helpful, very useful. But then whether can be more waste of time or helpful, that depends on yourself.
E cosa pensa della donazione degli organi? Può essere considerato un atto di compassione?
La rimozione degli organi.
Donazione, espianti, donazione.
La donazione. Allora lo ripeto in inglese. What Your Holiness thinks about the donation of human organs when you're about to die, where you just that. Donating organs, is it something good?
That depends. It's firstly, dying person. In any way, you say now, no longer use. And then some remains sort of undamaged certain organ, something useful to other patients. Very good. And in some cases, I think, I was told someone in China, those prisoner, like a follower of Falun Gong, sometimes remove their organ. That's terrible.
Ora,
next question.
Omar, actually, I have a question.
Louder.
I have a question.
Louder.
I have a question about peace and education about the war, meaning that everything is based on economy. So if it's not solved, the basis of it, which is the economy, which is the profit, which is that everything in the world is based upon economics, you cannot have peace, really. I mean, because corporations operate based on profit, and profit is what is making war. So if you ask the why about the war in those areas where there's a lot of oil, you understand that oil is the problem. So everything is about money. So peace, you reach it once you understand that.
So, just think money, profit, and selling arms, and produce more armament. You get more, profit. So lack of moral principle, lack of compassion, sense of compassion. Weapon, bullet, their work or their duty is kill, nothing else. So I remember one Nobel laureate, I think, now I don't know whether he alive or not, Costa Rica's one, I think, president. I think, you see, some was a movement banning selling arms. Wonderful. So it is first step. Then gradually demilitarize the world.
Stefano Dallai della Casa del Tibet. Santità, perché la cultura tibetana che rischia di scomparire è così importante per la pace del mondo e per la felicità di tutti?
Your Holiness, why the Tibetan culture who is at risk of completely disappear in the world is so important for the for the better of the world and for the peace of the world? Why is so important? The Tibetan culture, why is so important?
I think Tibetan culture, since 8th century, the knowledge which developed, firstly, because of Indus Valley, by the way. Indus Valley sort of civilization or knowledge. I think eventually Nalanda institution, I think a top, or say the learning center. So knowledge from that institution, 8th century, one great Indian master, philosopher, as well as great logician, he invited to Tibet. So since then, I think Tibetan kept all this knowledge intact. So today, I found from this knowledge, I think we can share, I think more people, as I briefly mentioned, as far as the psychology, knowledge about emotion and how to tackle emotion is concerned. Now, this ancient Indian knowledge is, I think, very, very relevant to today's world. Should not consider as a part of religion, part of Buddhism. It's an academic subject.
Nell'era dell'io e del mio, come possiamo far capire all'umanità e alla società l'emergenza e il cambiamento climatico per la salvaguardia del nostro pianeta e nel suo rispetto? Grazie.
During a time when everybody thinks very strongly, I and mine, how can we communicate to humanity the emergency of the global warming? Of global warming.
I think media people and some special environmentalists, I think their voice
should be heard stronger.
And then the education field also, I think, include this knowledge. Thank you.
Grazie.
Sua Santità, una domanda. Negli ultimi tempi si sta sentendo nel nostro Paese troppi casi di femminicidio e violenza sulle donne. Cosa sta succedendo secondo lei?
So recently, Your Holiness, we heard a lot of abuses on women and female and killing of women and female, even in our country. What do you think about this?
I think you should get more teaching from Jewish. This actually, I think, modern world, the materialistic life, the sensorial experience considered very important. Seeing, including sports, and hearing music, smell, taste, and touch, including sex, sexual. So it's a bit too much sort of today concern these things. Not much sort of experience, not much knowledge about genuine sort of the peace or the happiness or joyfulness developed in mental level, not relying on sensorial level.
Thank you for being here this afternoon. Grazie per parole tue, ma incredibile. Allora, can you give me an example, Your Holiness, of something very specific that I can say to a person who is not being peaceful to me or to someone else that you think will touch that person and help reset or change that moment to be a more peaceful moment?
I don't know.
Qualcuno
So
che
these things,
per pacificare.
the individual must think. Analyze the circumstances. I think, if possible, the Shantadeva's book, the 10th chapter, 6th chapter, the 8th chapter, these 2 chapters, I think worthwhile to read.
The world we are living in now is full of complicated issues, and it seems largely controlled by political leaders. So I want to ask the Holiness what suggestion you can give to young people, how we can be hopeful and optimistic to make positive social changes.
I think, unlike past, I think now, among younger generation, I think a desire for peace and also eventually sense of oneness of humanity and also showing environment, inspired some leaders sort of different emphasis. So therefore, now I think younger generation, they themselves much more because of pay attention. It's different sort of, how to say, fields where different values, not only just a material value. Okay.
I teach art in a high art school, drawing and painting, and for me it's a bridge fantastic to get in touch with the inner part of my students. How can I help them to discover themselves through art and solve their problems?
Oh.
And then I have a mom with Alzheimer. What I can do? Thank you.
I have what?
Alzheimer, my mom has Alzheimer, so what can I do?
Allora, I think since you are sort of, what's the profession, that particular field, so you know better. So don't ask me.
Dal momento che sei tu la professoressa di arte, sei tu l'esperta di quel particolare campo, tu sai molto meglio di me che cosa dover fare, per cui è inutile che chiedi a me che non lo so.
I'm going to teach you another. Now, I think they now already developed that
Alzheimer.
That, then I don't know, difficult. But I think from childhood, analytical meditation, sharpening your mind, that's very helpful to maintain ability, memory, these things.
Volevo fare un breve ringraziamento a nome di tutti i giovani e tutte le persone che attraverso gli insegnamenti di compassione, amore, sono riusciti a trovare una soluzione per superare situazioni particolarmente difficili e momenti complessi nella loro vita, e chiedere se Sua Santità ha qualche consiglio per quando ci sentiamo come se le situazioni fossero troppo grandi da superare per noi e come fare.
Now today's world, yes, individual level or community level or global level, there are, I think, many unnecessary problems. There's no single method to overcome these things. I think cause already developed, so difficult to change or stop the effect. So therefore, now we have to think future of humanity. Now, time comes, we must start work now. Then after 20 years, 30 years, different world may come.
Che cosa possiamo fare quando ci troviamo bloccati e incapaci di procedere? Perché tentiamo di instaurare un dialogo con qualcuno che non vuole avere un dialogo perché finge che non ci sia un problema oppure perché crede che non ci sia un problema da risolvere.
So what can we do when we face someone who doesn't want to dialogue? doesn't want to engage in any dialogue, when we face someone who doesn't acknowledge that there is an actual problem and doesn't want to engage in any type of dialogue, what can we do?
If the person more intelligent, then they explain. If the person very stubborn, we can't do anything.
Grazie.